The story begins in all the sacred texts with Satan harboring an immense hatred towards humanity. And he acknowledges himself in the Quran that he is always striving to subjugate the human race. He said, "Have you seen this one whom you have honored above me? If you delay me until the day of resurrection, indeed, I will surely destroy his descendants except for a few." The term itnak in the language means to seize or take control. It refers to the statement made by Iblis to his Lord. "Indeed, it is Adam whom you have honored above me, but grant me authority over his descendants, so that I may mislead them all, except for your chosen servants." Iblis, driven by his arrogance, pride, and blind hatred towards the children of Adam, believed that this constituted a challenge to God Almighty. He is capable of capturing the largest number of human beings. That is why the response of our Lord, glorified and exalted be he, to Iblis was, "Depart, for whoever follows you among them, indeed, hell will be the recompense for you, a generous recompense." Iblis is crude in that he can seduce a large number of humans. And indeed, Satan had already confirmed to them his assumption, so they followed him, except for a party of believers. The Quran also states that the vast majority of humans have truly, not metaphorically, worshipped Satan. "Did I not enjoin upon you, O children of Adam, that you should not worship Satan? Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy? And that they worship me, that is the straight path. And many among you have been led astray by a mountain. Could it be that you do not understand?" In a narration from the Prophet Muhammad, he says, "Do not delay your prayers at sunrise or sunset. Indeed, it rises between the companions of Satan and sets among the companions of Satan." The hadith is found in many authentic collections, and you can verify it for yourselves. The truth is, I do not precisely know what it means for the sun to rise between the horns of the devil or to set between the horns of the devil. But what is strange is that if we search through history and legends, we find that the satanic symbol mentioned by the Prophet Muhammad 1,400 years ago indeed exists. The Hadras and the Sunnis are much older than his mission. If we look, for example, at ancient Egyptian civilization, we find the crown of the goddess Isis bearing the same symbol mentioned by the Prophet. The sun between two horns. The Hittite civilization in Turkey. The sun between two horns. The civilization of Babylon in Iraq, the same symbol. The ancient civilizations of Yemen. This is a stone engraving in Shandong province, eastern China, dating back more than 4,500 years before Christ. The sun between two horns. This is a Persian kuza from Iran, dating back to before the Prophet's mission. The kuza bears the sun, and above it, a demon with two horns. This engraving is from the Tassili caves in Algeria. It dates back to 10,000 BCE. As with the civilizations before you, in the center of the engraving is a sun, above which are two horns. This is a mural from southern Mexico, currently housed in the Berlin Museum. It dates back to the Ubaid civilization. The painting depicts the god of war, Hadzalu Bashli, and the people present to him the heart of a human sacrifice as an offering. The painting depicts the god Huitzilopochtli as a two-horned being above the sun. This is also a mural from the Khonsu temple in the courtyard of Ammonius at Karnak. The sun between two horns. In fact, this symbol was not limited to ancient religions alone. We can also find it in Christianity. As you can see before you, this model represents your civilizations. From St. Stanislaus Church in Chicago. This is also a panel from the Church of St. Martin in Italy. The same symbol, the sun between two horns. So how did this ancient symbol infiltrate Christianity? What is its meaning and origins? This is what we will discover together. If the hypothesis that sun worship is originally the worship of Lucifer or the devil were true, this may explain why sun worship spread throughout the ancient world. In all ancient civilizations, in Egypt, as the successive dynasties rose and fell, their names varied. But it was always present. His name was Ra, Ammonius, Adam, Khepri, and Horus. The sun god was also present in every civilization that arose in Iraq. Enlil among the Sumerians, Nagrisu among the Akkadians, Marduk or Shamash among the Babylonians, Ashur in Assyrian civilization. The Phoenicians also worshipped the sun god under the name Baal, who is mentioned in the Quran. They worshipped us with devotion and honored us above all creation. After that, Baal was transformed and became known as Apollo, the sun god among the Greeks, Helios among the Romans, Ahura among the Persians, Udaipur among the Hindus, Huitzilopochtli near Mexico City. No matter how much time passes and civilizations succeed one another, the worship of the sun remains unchanged. Sayuda in a strange way. The names differ, but the worship is one. Multiple names. A global religion with one deity. The Lord of the Sun, bearer of the light and master of radiance. Lucifer. We also observe that the stone carvings of early humans precede the known human civilizations. She used to depict the sun carried on a human body. Like the engraving before your civilizations, This is the unknown sun goddess in the Tassili caves of Algeria. 10,000 years ago, we will also find an exact replica of it on the other side of the world, in Parry Sound District, Ontario, Canada. And this could be a simple message from the early humans. They say that they were not worshipping the sun itself. There was only a mysterious person involved. He always claims to be the bearer of light and the owner of radiance. Early Greek myths also speak of a mysterious god named Phanes. It is said that he was instrumental in the existence of the human world. In the legend, Phanes is the sun god who was born from fire. We see it still burning beneath his feet. Phanes has wings and a leg like that of a ram, a large python coiled around his body, and he carries a torch in his hand as a signal. He is the bearer of light and the master of radiance. If we look more closely, we will find two rabbits behind the head of the phoenix. The bells ring out beneath the blazing sun. All symbols marked by a journey of doubt and controversy. The cobras and the viper, the torchbearer, fire, the sun between two horns. We can say that Venus is as close as it gets to the concept of Satan in the three Abrahamic religions. If the worship of the sun is originally a worship of Lucifer or the devil, who was able to transmit this worship among all the ancient civilizations of the world? Multiple civilizations separated by time and space. It is well known that the mindset of the disbeliever rejects belief in an unseen God. Cannot be seen. That is why they worship idols, statues, or any material object. So how can a disbeliever who believes in these material things also believe in the devil? And this brings us to the second question. Did the devil incarnate and inspire his followers among the priests? The worship of the sun and its symbols, which we find present in every civilization. Are there any indications in the sacred texts and traditions regarding the possibility of the embodiment of demons? In the Quran, for example, during the Battle of Badr, the first battle of the Muslims, the verses tell us that Satan indeed took on a physical form. He played the role of the war instigator. And when he saw the angels descending from the heavens to aid the believers in battle, he disavowed the infidels and their weakness, and fled. The verses state, "And Satan adorned to them their deeds and said, 'No one will overcome you today from among the people, and indeed, I am your protector.' So when the two armies sighted each other, he turned back on his heels and said, 'Indeed, I am free from you. I see what you do not see. I fear God, and God is severe in punishment.'" It is clear from the verses that incarnation truly took place. The alarming aspect of this detail is that it raises a very important question. Could the devil have incarnated and played this role in other wars? This is what we will explore together in the upcoming episodes. We now return to the subject of the second incarnation. Heritage narratives also indicate that jinn and devils do not only take on human forms. No countries can take the form of other creatures like dogs and hyenas or cats and rams. In a narration, for example, it is said that the jinn are a diverse group of categories. They were equipped with wings and soared through the air. The life and classification of dogs. They classify, milk, and curdle. It means a category of travelers. He does not settle in one place. What is remarkable is that we find all the ancient Mesopotamian civilizations used to revere and worship these creatures, like dogs, hyenas, and rams, terrifying shapes with wings, as the legend describes. So, did jinn and demons truly manifest in physical form in the past? And they let people worship them? There is a verse in the Quran that refers to this subject. If you pay attention, you will find that the angels say it most often. The vast majority of humans have, in fact, worshipped jinn throughout the ages. In a sacred narration, it is also said, "I created my servants as upright and devoted." It means monotheism. They were ambushed by demons. That means they pursued them. And he prohibited for them what God has made unlawful. "And I commanded them not to associate partners with me in what I have not sent down with authority." In the Bible, there is also the book of Leviticus. We will find a verse that says, "And other sacred texts, those who speak of jinn and demons played a prominent and pivotal role in the distortion of the divine religions and the monotheistic beliefs revealed to humanity thousands of years ago, long before the Abrahamic religions." If we look back at the primitive inscriptions that precede the known human civilizations, we find common depictions of enigmatic comparative creatures. In various regions around the world, in the valleys of America, such as Chaco Canyon and the Azra Spring Valley, we find the same creatures depicted in engravings from Algeria. Everywhere in the world, the engravings always focus on a mysterious horned creature associated with the sun, rams, and serpents. Who, then, is this horned creature? And what is the reason for its widespread presence in all primitive inscriptions? According to some sources, ancient tribes practiced a form of black magic. It enables them to communicate with the creatures of the underworld. So, can these inscriptions be considered evidence of the greatest conspiracy between the demons of humans and jinn to enslave the human race? Sumerian inscriptions. If we leave aside the primitive inscriptions and turn to the ancient civilizations, like the Sumerian civilization in Iraq, for example, we also find worship of mysterious paired deities under the name of anonymity. The meaning of the name is the royal lineage, or those who come from the sky. They are also known by different names in Sumerian inscriptions, like masters of glowing torches and the watchers, or the observers, those who constantly observe humans. Some linked the name to the observers, the verse that speaks about Iblis and his followers among the devils, and it says, "Indeed, he sees you and his tribe from where you do not see them." The inscriptions tell us the Anunnaki were masters of humanity. They enslaved them for a long period of time. They are depicted as towering gods with elongated bodies. Strangely, these are the very same descriptions drawn by the early inhabitants of America, like the engraving that predates your civilizations from the Azraq Valley in springtime. Tall, slender giraffes. One of them is holding a glowing torch. The same deities transferred without a clear logical connection from America to Iraq. If we look more closely at the spring of Wadi Azra in front of us, it will remind us of an important event in Islamic heritage. In Al-Albani's authentic series, Hadith number 1995, a companion recounts an attack by similar creatures on the Prophet Muhammad. The text of the speech says, "The devils came to the messenger of God from the valleys, and civilization advanced upon it from the mountains. Among them is a demon carrying a torch of fire. He wants to burn the messenger of God with it." It is clear that these entities are not only mentioned in the inscriptions, but also mentioned in the heritage and religions of peoples. We return once again to the civilization of Sumer. It is said that the lord of the Anunnaki and their leader was a deity named Enki, the keeper of knowledge and the water lord of war and destruction. It is also associated with the rams, much like the god of beginnings in America. The god Enki in Sumerian religion is the lord of the sacred priesthood, those who teach people magic, the arts of wisdom, and knowledge. It is the temple of a massive ziggurat that still stands today in Eridu, Iraq. They carved the inscriptions in the temple like a bas-relief. In later ages in the land of Mesopotamia, specifically during the Akkadian period and the late Babylonian period, the horn god is worshipped under the name Nergal. The ancient people worshipped the sun as a deity. Interestingly, just as the prophetic tradition prohibits prayer at sunset, and it tells us that this is the time for the worship of Satan, we find that the temple was being actively worshipped during that specific period. He was referred to in ancient Babylonian hymns as the king of sunset. Nergal was the god of fire, and one of his titles was the burning, or the incinerator. The god of war was the guide for humans in combat and the use of weapons. The legend says that he always accompanied kings and soldiers to the battlefields. He was the god of death and the underworld. Plague and epidemics are sent upon humanity, and he takes a large number of them to hell. One of the most famous symbols of the horned deity is the horned figure in Babylonian sculptures. The lion, the snakes, the sun, and the fire. We will travel from Iraq to the Egyptian civilization. We explore the oldest generation of gods. We will also find the worship of the horned god Khnum, where the sun rises between its horns. The god Khnum is credited with the creation of humans. In Egyptian religion, he is known as the god of water and fertility. It grants the Egyptians life through a sacred magical gift. And just like the pioneers in America, they associated their mysterious horned deity with rams. The Egyptian god Khnum was his creator. It is also connected to the entire Valley of the Rams. Let us continue together the journey of the horned deity, that which has been worshipped in all ancient civilizations of the world. The sun god, lord of serpents and rams. We will travel from the Egyptian civilization to the Phoenician civilization that arose along the coasts of Syria, Palestine, and Lebanon. The Phoenicians worshipped the same horned deity under the name of the god Baal, the god of the sun and fertility, the giver of life. Baal is mentioned in the Bible under the name Baal-zebub in an attempt to demonize him by associating him with the Zabaline as a deity opposed to the Torah god. Baal-zebub is known as the Lord of Demons and the Prince of Hell. In the New Testament, Baal is mentioned in the Gospels of Matthew and Mark. When the books became enemies of Jesus, he was accused of casting out demons from the bodies of the afflicted with the aid of the demon Baal. I also recall Baal being mentioned in several passages in the Old Testament. In the Book of Kings, for example, we find a passage that mentions a king of Israel. His name is King Oxiah, and he holds a high position, sustaining serious injuries. He instructed his ministers to go to the priests of the god Baal to determine whether the divine king will survive or not. I also recall Baal in the 2nd chapter of the Book of Kings. The text also states that Joshua died, as did every generation. And after them came another generation that did not know the Lord nor the mighty works he had performed for Israel. The Israelites committed evil in the sight of the Lord by worshipping Baal. This text reveals that there is an entire generation of Israelis who have been influenced by the figure of Baal. Another passage in the Book of Chronicles tells us about an Israelite king named Josiah. When he began his reform efforts, he ordered his followers to demolish the statues of Baal. The text says, "They demolished before him the altars of Baal and the image of the sun that was above them." This text reveals the widespread prevalence of the representation of the horned deity in the kingdom of Israel. That is why we find a verse in the Quran that says, "And indeed, Elias was from the messengers, when he said to his people, "Will you not fear Allah? They are called by exalted names and honored among the finest of creators." The temple of the horned god Baal spread along the Phoenician coast to the extent that every city would add the name of Baal to its own. Thus, the names of cities remained, such as Baal Tamar, Baal Hosor, Baal Hammon, and Baalbek in Lebanon. The temple of Baal was the site of a very gruesome practice, the offering of child sacrifices. They used to create a massive statue of Baal made of metal, in which they would ignite fire. They placed the child at the top of the statue or in its hands to be protected in battle. Will Durant, author of The Story of Civilization, mentioned this custom and said that the Phoenician priests brought with them their god Baal Melkart to Carthage. And with him also went his cruelty, including the burning of children. When the Roman army came and besieged Carthage in 147 BC, 200 children from the most distinguished families of the city were burned as a sacrifice on the altar of the god Baal Melkarth. So that fathers and mothers do not hear the screams of their children as they burn, the priests organized a musical ensemble that played the drums and blew the trumpets. The cries of the children were lost amid the noise. The Story of Civilization, Volume 2, page 61. What we observe here is that the kingdom of Israel, from ancient times, practiced offering child sacrifices to the demonic deity. What they are doing today is nothing new to them. Their media was not much different from the musical ensemble of the god Baal. It is like the beating of drums and the blowing of flutes that drown out the sound of children being killed. From the land of the Phoenicians we will journey eastward to the ancient land of Persia, present-day Iran. Historical sources indicate that the earliest civilization established in the land of Persia was known as the Giraffe civilization. It dates back to more than 3,500 years before Christ. No one knows how this civilization disappeared. Has there ever been a case of genocide in a particular region? This question remains unanswered to this day. But by examining the artifacts of Giraffe, we discover that they worshipped the same mysterious horned deity, the sun god, the deity of rams and serpents. The horned god was present on many of their vessels and possessions. Historical sources indicate that the earliest civilization established in the land of Persia was known as the Giraffe civilization. After the disappearance of the Giraffe civilization, several civilizations emerged on the land of Persia, like the Median, Achaemenid, and Sasanian civilizations. Civilizations that worshipped celestial deities, foremost among them the sun god. Amid the vastness of the desert and the movements of the celestial spheres, a reform movement emerged under the leadership of a man named Zoroaster. He called for a single god named Ar-Mazda, the true god and the light. The Persian tradition states that Zoroaster withdrew from people into one of the caves of Mount Savalon, and he continued to worship there in the cave until an angel named Fomana appeared. Zarathustra ascended on a celestial journey to utter words of truth and to learn the secrets of revelation. Zarathustra returned with pure and unadulterated monotheism, but his people turned away from his call and rejected it. He headed to a city called Balkh and met the king, and a message was presented to him. And Zoroaster said, "I am the prophet of the one wise God. I have come to you, O king, to turn your heart away from the worship of evil idols to the eternal glory of the true God." The king responded to his call and supported it. They helped spread the religion of monotheism. Some Muslim historians have regarded Zoroaster as one of the prophets, and his followers are the ones mentioned in the Quran by the name As-Sabika. Indeed, those who believe, those who follow Judaism, the Christians and the steadfast, who believes in God and the last day, their reward is with their Lord, and there is no fear concerning them, nor do they grieve. A group of Persians remained steadfast, adhering to the monotheistic faith brought by Zoroaster. But over time and with the passage of ages, the ancient religion was distorted at the hands of a group of priests who practiced black magic. Historically, they were known as the Magi, from whose name the English word magic is derived. Professor Taha Bakir speaks about the Magi in the book, The History of Ancient Civilizations. The Magi are of unknown origin, and little is known about their religion, which were originally not Persian except for a few things. In reality, there is no true deity in the Zoroastrian religion, rather, a vast number of malevolent demons. Professor Taha Bakir's remarks have concluded. Professor Taha Bakir states explicitly that the Magi used to worship jinn and demons. I present to you the chief of demons and their leader, worshipped by the Magi. Exactly as I expected, the horned god once again. They worshipped him under the name Angramenu or Arman. The meaning of the name is Master of Fire, or Bearer of the Torch, or Father of the Flame, the god of magic and war among the Magi. Now we will leave the land of Persia and head to their northern neighbors, Asia Minor or the land of Anatolia, Turkey today. Family records tell us that the oldest civilization arose in this region. Her name was Catalhoyuk. This history dates back at least 5,000 years before Christ. The city of Catalhoyuk was distinguished by its unusual houses that had no doors. The inhabitants used to enter their homes through an opening in the roof. They ascend to it via a wooden ladder, then they pull the ladder up with them. This tactic was employed to secure the city against any hostile attacks. However, despite this, the city's inhabitants mysteriously vanished as if they had turned into ghosts. Even their belongings and utensils were left exactly as they were. This mystery has puzzled archaeologists and excavators in the city. What kind of event could cause the residents of the city to suddenly flee their homes? In the year 1961, archaeologists discovered shrines for the horned creature of unknown name. They used to symbolize it with a bull's head. They place it in the direction of prayer. After the disappearance of the Catalhoyuk civilization, another civilization rises on the land of Anatolia, known as the Hittite civilization. The Hittites also worshipped the horned god under the name Hadad, the god of storms and war. The Hittites always used to inscribe the symbol of the thunderbolt on the walls of their castles and fortresses. In one of the largest cities in Anatolia, we also find a prayer niche carved with a horned creature, with the sun rising between its horns. We continue our journey with the horned deity and travel from Turkey to the Arabian Peninsula. The most powerful and victorious kingdoms in the ancient world arose on its land, like the kingdoms of Hadramaut, Kataban, and Mayan. However, we can consider that the most famous civilization to have emerged in Yemen is the one mentioned in the Sabaean inscriptions as Saba, or what we know as Sheba, the most renowned kingdoms of Yemen of all time. Sheba was once renowned for its abundance of gardens and fruit. It is mentioned in the Quran. There was for Sheba in their dwelling place a sign, 2 gardens on the right and on the left. Eat from the provision of your Lord and be grateful to him. A good land and a forgiving Lord. But, as usual, the devil continued to lure them into his worship, embodied in the worship of the sun. This is also mentioned in the Quran in the story of King Solomon, when the Hoopoe came and spoke about the ancient kingdom of Sheba. And he said, I found a woman ruling them, and she has been given of all things, and she has a great throne. I found her and her people prostrating to the sun instead of Allah, and Satan has made their deeds appear pleasing to them and averted them from his way, so they are not guided. The various inscriptions reveal to us that all the successive kingdoms existed on the land of Yemen used to worship a horned god of unknown name, the god of the sun and the rams. Many of the artifacts and tombstones bore the familiar symbol, the sun between 2 horns. From Yemen, we will journey into the depths and jungles of Africa. Sun worship was also widespread among the tribes. Its name varies from one tribe to another, but the sun god is always present. Sources tell us that the tribes hold lively and exuberant dance celebrations, and sacrifices are offered at the break of dawn as a form of worship and veneration to the torchbearer and the bearer of light. Sources also tell us that the tribes represented the sun god as a horned deity. Professor of ethnology at the University of Paris, in the book Religions in Black Africa, states that the worship of the deity that rises between the horns of the sun is widespread among the tribes of Africa. That is why, in most tribes, we find hundreds of statues and masks of the horned deity. In Nigeria and some neighboring countries, the horned god was worshipped under the name Ikna, the god of war and the otherworld. Ikna remains sacred to this day. There, we find hundreds of statues and masks in several African tribes. A single fingerprint and a distinctive mark. A global religion and a single deity. From the depths of Africa we will journey to India. Follow the epic of the horned deity and his extensive journeys across the corners of the world. In the 1920s, researchers and excavators began to uncover the ruins of an ancient city named Mohenjo-Daro. It dates back to more than 2,000 years before Christ. Mohenjo-Daro was one of the largest cities in the ancient civilization of the Indus Valley, which included Pakistan and large areas of India. Its population was estimated at 40,000 inhabitants. And like the civilization of Catalhoyuk in Turkey and the Giraffe civilization in Iran, the civilization of Mohenjo-Daro in India vanished suddenly and strangely. The common link between the 3 civilizations. They all worshipped the same mysterious horned god. Archaeologists found amidst the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro the same horned deity, the sun god and the rams. Some believe that this paired deity is the original form of the god Shiva, what the Hindus currently worship. For this reason, they agreed to name it Shiva Pashupani, which means the spirit of the god Shiva. However, the true name of the paired deity remains unknown to this day. The inscriptions state that Shiva Pashupani is present in all the bad places, on the battlefields, in the clashes, and the sites of executions. At the crossroads, wherever he goes, skulls pile up. He is accompanied by a host of evil spirits and demons. He is called the Lord of Animals, a god of the sun, fertility, and the giver of life. It is clear that the rams held a special significance for him. We find it inscribed beneath his throne. After the disappearance of Mohenjo-Daro in later ages, starting from the 3rd century BCE, the worship of the horned deity re-emerged in India. This time it is known as the deity Nagamesha. Nagamesha was the god of war, called upon to fight, a terrifying god who was worshipped for his malevolent harm. The inscriptions also tell us that Nagamesha had a connection with children. Some recent studies initially believed it to be a protector of childbirth, but the truth is that Nagamesha was a deity to whom child sacrifices were regularly offered. The locals would offer him gifts at the foothills of the mountains and in remote areas, so that their children would not be taken away from them. Throughout the various regions of India, hundreds of clay statues of the deity Nagamesha have been discovered, which indicates that it had a widespread and strong worship. The horned god in the ancient civilization draws our attention as the deity of war across all civilizations. It means, for example, Huitzilopochtli in Mexico, the god of war, was offered the hearts of their enemies. In ancient Iraq, the god of war was depicted in certain inscriptions, sending the eagle bird against his enemies. Baal Moloch among the Phoenicians was also a god of war. When Roman armies besieged Carthage, the people of Carthage offered child sacrifices to fight alongside them and save them from the Romans. Engra-Mainyu, the god of the Persians, was the god of war. Hadad was the god of the Hittites, the god of war, and he had a private temple inside the war fortresses. In Yemen and among some African tribes, we also find the horned deity, the god of war. In India, as we have seen, the horned deity Shiva Pashupati. The legend says that he is always present on battlefields and in wars, meaning he is also a god of war. If we observe closely, we find that the Quran mentions the devil taking a physical form in only one instance, the state of war between the believers and the unbelievers. Could it all be mere coincidence that the horned deity was the god of war in every ancient civilization? Could it be that the devil has always played this role in the wars of the past and present? The connection between one human and another keeps humanity trapped in a vicious cycle of killing and destruction. Isn't this entirely in line with the devil's goal of the destruction of humankind? His secrets and his declared desire for revenge against humanity from the very beginning. If we leave India and travel to China, we encounter the Hongshan civilization. Its origins date back to more than 4,500 years before Christ. The Hongshan civilization extended across vast regions throughout China. And despite the civilization enduring for hundreds of years, however, their deity was one. Indeed, his name is unknown, and the information we have received about him is very limited. However, he was known to them as the sun god and the bearer of light. On hundreds of statues carved from sacred jade stone, the statues depict him as a horned figure sitting in a squatting position. From India, we will travel to Greece to continue our journey in search of the common deity in all ancient civilizations. The civilization of King Minos arises. This is considered the oldest civilization in the land of Greece and in Europe in general. In the civilization of King Minos, we find an important legend. We can shed light on our main topic. The legend says that the kingdom of Minos was home to a fierce and savage creature. Its name is the Minotaur. It was a grotesque creature with a human body and a bull's head. They kill humans. King Minos ordered an engineer named Daedalus to construct a complex labyrinth to imprison the Minotaur within. The legend says that King Minos, when he was victorious over his enemies, he would take boys and girls from them and throw them to the Minotaur in the labyrinth to eat them. Of course, this story has been classified among the myths and legends of the ancient world until the year 2009, when the archaeological excavations revealed a labyrinth almost exactly like the one in the legend. It is located approximately 30 kilometers from the city of Knossos, the capital of the kingdom of Minos. Here, the researchers began to reconsider the legend anew, and they claim it is not merely a myth and the subject has a historical origin. A new interpretation of the Minotaur myth has emerged. The interpretation suggests that the civilization of Crete, as it was the sole dominant power in the region, all the Greek cities paid an annual tribute to King Minos. The tribute included agricultural produce and gold. But most importantly, King Minos imposed his authority on the cities that fell under his rule. They have children every year, sons and daughters. They offer them as sacrifices to their deity, the paired deity once again, which will be known in Greece as the Minotaur. I need not tell you, of course, that this deity was the god of war among the Cretans. Like other civilizations, he was the one who granted them sovereignty and control over the neighboring kingdom. The ritual of offering human sacrifices to the horned deity in Crete, the weather was diabolical and frenzied. Boys and girls were placed in the maze we mentioned earlier, a maze that spreads panic and terror in their hearts. And they prefer to run through the maze until they reach the depths of the maze, or exactly its midpoint. They are slaughtered there by the priests in front of the idol of the horned deity, and their blood advances as a sacrifice. Simply put, it is the story of the monster that devours boys and girls in the labyrinth. It is an allegorical story about the offering of sacrifices or human offerings for the paired deity. This is the new interpretation of the legend. It was adopted by many scholars, especially since investigations have confirmed its accuracy. The ruling dynasty worshipped this horned being. Small features and representations were also found engraved on various coins. Even in the ruins of King Minos's palace, they found an altar with two horns on it, just as you see here. When the sun rose between them, they would prostrate in prayer. When we contemplate the altar and this strange investigation, We truly feel it is a distortion of the prophetic hadith with which the series began. The sun rises between the horns of Satan, and at that moment, the disbelievers prostrate to it. Here in Greece, the sun rose between the horns of the Minotaur. And just as the civilizations we mentioned earlier vanished, the civilization of Crete disappeared mysteriously. Like Catalhoyuk in Turkey, Jarraft in Iran, and the Mohenjo-Daro civilization in India. The paired deity is always present. In truth, if we contemplate the other civilizations such as the Sumerian civilization in Iraq and the Egyptian civilization, we will find that the priests who were responsible for establishing the worship and rituals of the paired deity and their marketing to the people, they always disappear suddenly with all their secrets and knowledge. If we fully grasp this analogy, we would feel that the associated deity is always accompanied by a retinue of priests and assistants. They move with him from one civilization to another to spread his worship and convey it to the ruling classes in any empire or kingdom. Through the ruling class, they can distort the inherent religion of any nation, spreading corruption and decay within it until they bring any civilization to destruction and downfall, and then they will transfer with their deity to another civilization to carry out the same mission. The eternal mission of the devil. The question here is, did the priests follow Lucifer? Are there among them those who live for a long time, their lifespans extended like that of Iblis? If we contemplate the verses of the Quran, we find that when Iblis asked our Lord to grant him respite, he said, "My Lord, reprieve me until the day they are resurrected." Our Lord responded to his request and said to him, "Indeed, you are among those who are granted respite." The apparent meaning of the verse tells us that there are those whose lives are long and extended like that of Iblis. Iblis knew that granting respite and seeking to prolong life was a request that had been granted and dealt with for people before him. So, are these entities those who preceded Satan in rebellion and disobedience, making the same demand of our Lord? Could some of these be the priests and sorcerers who aid Satan, or his minions from the demons, who are referred to in other cultures as fallen angels or princes of hell? The truth is, the deeper we delve into the history of religions, the more we encounter mysteries that have no answers. Before we move on to a new civilization, something important catches our attention. In a previous episode, we discussed that the children of Israel went through a period during which they worshipped the calf. This is clearly and explicitly mentioned in the Old Testament, as we noted earlier. But as we delve deeper into our journey, we observe that the period during which the children of Israel worshipped the calf did not pass without consequence. And indeed, it has the greatest impact on their religion. And we will discover that some distortions related to the worship of the associated deity have been inserted into the Jewish faith. For example, if we consider the massacres where sacrifices were offered to the horned deity, in various civilizations, bulls are universally found as symbols of the horned deity, like the altar of the horned god Shiva in India, or the Minotaur's altar in the civilization of Crete. You will find these massacres occurring over centuries. And here we notice that this is the same shape as the Jewish altar upon which sacrifices are offered. Also, we have seen throughout the previous episodes that the paired deity was a god of war and soldiers in many diverse civilizations. Strangely, if we contemplate the texts of the Old Testament, we find that it always refers to the God of the Torah by the title Lord of Hosts, in more than 250 places. The matter may be considered merely a coincidence. But when you find that the Lord of Hosts commands the killing of children, just as the idol Almakaron loves child sacrifices, I believe that the matter will be different for you, and it will become more than just a coincidence. As we read, for example, in the book of Isaiah, "Their children are shattered before their eyes, and pregnant women are torn apart." And in the book of Psalms, there is another passage that states, "O daughter of Babylon, the destroyer, blessed is the one who takes your children and strikes them against the rock." In 2 Samuel, we find another passage that states, "Go and strike the Amalekites. Do not spare them. Kill every man, woman, and infant." Any sane person will contemplate these texts in an impartial manner. He will immediately know that this deliberate exploitation of children is impossible to come from the Lord of the heavens and the earth. And indeed, they are criminal deeds to please another deity. After the decline of the Minoan civilization, the Mycenaean civilization emerged in its place, famous for constructing great palaces with magnificent architectural designs. The Mycenaean civilization lasted for more than 5 centuries. She also worshipped an unknown horned deity. He was a god of war and fertility among them. The Mycenaean civilization vanished in a mysterious manner. Many scholars have suggested that its disappearance was due to the Santorini volcano. After the eruption of the Santorini volcano, Greece entered a turbulent and dark era before the dawn of civilization began to rise again upon its land at the hands of the Greeks. Greek civilization is considered the mother of civilizations in Europe. The worship of the syncretized deity also dates back to that period. Once again, in a strange persistence under the name of the god Pan, the deity of pastures and wilderness, the lord of flocks and rams. The god Pan appears in sculptures and statues holding a flute in his hand. He plays it to summon his followers from among the sorcerers, who, according to legend, appeared to them in the mountains of the Arcadia region in Greece. The Greek civilization comes to an end, and the Roman civilization rises. The one who torments is the same infamous god, the paired deity who will be named Faunus. The meaning of the name is the burning, the glowing, or one who is created from fire. The word Faunus is considered the linguistic root of the word Phanes, which we still use to this day, because the word originally comes from Latin, not Arabic. The god Faunus among the Romans was the deity of sex and seduction, the god of nature and fire, and lord of the rams, the shepherd of fields and barren wildernesses. Sources say that the sorcerers used to head to the forests after midnight to establish the pillars of his worship, which involved lighting fires and offering child sacrifices. The worship of Faunus as a fertility deity associated with sexual activity and seduction had the most profound impact on the behavior of ancient civilizations that worshipped it. For example, the statue in front of you was found in the ruins of an ancient Roman city called Pompeii. It originated in Italy in the 2nd century BCE. Its population exceeded 20,000 inhabitants. And Faunus, the god of procreation, was a principal deity worshipped by them. In the city of Pompeii, debauchery and sexual promiscuity spread at an unbelievably rampant pace. They had a peculiar fascination with sexuality, to the extent that archaeologists found paintings depicting explicit sexual acts skillfully painted and colored inside the corners of the houses, meeting places, and public baths. And history tells us that at the end of one of the nights of Pompeii, a supernatural event froze the inhabitants of Pompeii in their places. Each one of them died in the same manner as they lived. Their bodies stiffened as if time had suddenly come to a halt around them. A catastrophe turned them into statues. The reality is that this frozen state reminds us of a specific torment mentioned in the Quran known as the cry, a loud sound that freezes the limbs and the blood in the veins. Its intensity turns living organisms into statues. And those who wronged were seized by the blast, and they lay lifeless in their homes. And in another verse, and if we had sent down upon them a single blast from the sky, they would have been like the dry twig fragments. The meaning of dry twig fragments refers to trees that have dried out and withered and remained easily breakable. If you observe closely, you will find that this Quranic description is the closest likeness to the state of the people in Pompeii. The important point is that after the bodies froze, the Vesuvius volcano erupted beside them. Its lava covered the people with fire and ashes, and it remained preserved, buried for 2,000 years, until excavations uncovered the city of Pompeii in 1748. And the stone figures emerged before us that eloquently tell the story of an eternal silence on the torment endured by the people of Pompeii 2,000 years ago. And thus your Lord seized the towns while they were committing injustice. His suffering was intense and severe. The city of Pompeii vanished from the face of the earth. As for the horned god Faunus, he was preparing to continue his mission in a new civilization. We continue our journey with the horned deity, Lord of Darkness, God of War. This time, the horned god will reach the shores of the Baltic Sea. It weaves among the Slavic communities, the ancestors of the Russians, Poles, Bulgarians, and Ukrainians, the Serbs, the Czechs, and others. All these peoples will come to know the paired god and worship him under the name Velis. Linguistic studies to date have been unable to determine the origin or meaning of the word Velis. The Slavs say that he is a sheik with a long beard. For 2 centuries, it has inhabited a world beyond the seas. For the Lord of the earth and the waters is not the master of the forests. Those who teach people sorcery, seduction, vice, and deception. A god of the underworld and guide of the path to death and destruction. The story also tells us that Velis could take the form of a dog, a snake, or an owl. It always inhabits dense trees, such as willow trees. Worship was not widespread to the extent that there was a large number. Villages and towns still bear his name to this day, like the city of Velis in Macedonia, the city of Velesice in Sarajevo, and the city of Velesko in Croatia. Buckle up for his journey as he crosses the Rhine River to reach Europe. In the lands of Britain, the horned god became known as the god Cosidius. The god of war, known for his bloodthirstiness, was always depicted with statues painted in red. In other regions of Britain, the horned god known as Bellaticadros was worshipped. He also worshipped the soldiers as a god of war. His name means the shining, beautiful god or the glowing killer. In the mountains of the heart in Austria, the deity known as Krampus is recognized. The god of death and injustice to whom worship was directed, which also included child sacrifices. But after the advent of Christianity, Krampus transformed into a popular legend used to frighten children. The legend says that Krampus comes at Christmas time with a sack in which he puts the badly behaved child and takes them away to an unknown fate. In Ireland and Scotland, the horned deity known as the god Samhain is recognized. The god of death and injustice. The god Samhain was also a deity associated with fire, as we have seen with the horned god consistently. In other civilizations, their rituals and devotional practices involved the abundant lighting of fire and placing it within the community. They believed that with the onset of winter, specifically on the last night of October, Samhain emerged from the underworld, and with him all the spirits and evil demons to torment the living. The farmers would return to their homes that night and would not venture out, seeking to protect themselves from the evil of Samhain and his followers. They would offer sacrifices, with each person leaving sweets in front of their door to prevent evil spirits from entering the house and taking the food themselves. The god Samhain had priests, most of whom were women. On the last night of October, they would wear terrifying costumes and frightening masks. They raised skulls with candles inside, carrying them around the houses as emissaries of the god Samhain to collect offerings. As Christianity spread, Christian missionaries failed to eradicate the rituals of the god Samhain. They resorted to a clever stratagem by transforming the Samhain festival into a religious celebration with a Christian character. It was transformed from a pagan festival honoring the spirits of demons into a religious celebration for the souls of the saints, known today as Halloween. Despite the holiday's transition from paganism to Christianity, it has retained its original character to this day. Children still dress as priests of the god Samhain and go from house to house demanding sweets, which were once offerings. The skulls that the priests of the god Samhain used to carry while passing by the houses were replaced by a symbolic art form. Then they became pumpkins with candles placed inside them, just like the skulls. It is worth noting that the original rituals of the god Samhain are still practiced today by some shamans in Ireland and Scotland. In other European regions where the Celtic civilization prevailed, encompassing vast areas of France, Italy, Sweden, Germany, Denmark, and others, all these peoples would come to know the horned god and worship him under the name of the god Cernunnos, meaning the horned one. Cernunnos was the god of fire and the underworld, the guide of souls to death, the lord of fertility and seduction. His worship rituals were conducted in the forests, and as usual, child sacrifices were offered to him. Its symbol was a sun with two horns above it. The worship of Cernunnos was widely prevalent throughout the entire Celtic civilization. However, after the adoption of Christianity in these regions, the worship of Cernunnos became confined to a very limited scope due to fear of the church's persecution. European history books and historians have noted that the worship of Cernunnos continued to be favored. The majority of his servants were women. They used to gather in pure and secluded areas of the forest every day at dawn in what is historically known as the Sabbath of the Sorcerers. They perform secret rituals and offer child sacrifices. It is said that Satan used to manifest to them or possess the body of a ram or a goat. He stands on his hind legs and teaches them magic, incantations, and the binding of evil curses. The church established special inquisition courts to investigate witches and execute them by burning or hanging. Unfortunately, it was a very dark period in Europe, during which innocent lives were lost due to malicious rumors. Sources indicate that the church crucified and burned more than 100,000 people accused of practicing witchcraft. At that moment, the horned deity concealed itself from view, silently observing the slaughter. But that was never enough to extinguish the fire of hatred and revenge he harbored against humanity. He was always thirsty for more. The destruction of nations and the killing of people was its sole and primary objective. We continue our journey with the horned god of war. At that time, a formidable warrior force known as the Mongols was rising in Asia. They were known for their brutality and savagery in killing. They conquered Afghanistan, Iran, and the Levant and destroyed Baghdad, the capital of the Islamic State. They eliminated the Kievan Rus state, and their raids reached Lebanon, Indonesia, Bulgaria, Serbia, Austria, and India. They unleashed the killing of people in the streets, looted everything they encountered, burned cities, and committed a horrific massacre. More than 2 million people have been killed at the very least in the Islamic countries. Historical records indicate that they killed nearly 57 million people in the totality of the wars they waged. At that time, 10% of the world's population literally wiped out entire nations. When we reflect on the religion of the Mongols, we realize that all this bloodshed and massacres did not originate from them. And behind it lies the same god of disasters and his mark, the horned deity. What was known as the deity among the Mongols was Erlik Khan, the god of death and the underworld and the bearer of the flame of fire. Erlik in the religion is believed to bring diseases and evil spirits into the human world. He is capable of abducting humans to hell and tormenting them. And Erlik offers sacrifices and offerings that include animals and children. According to Mongol legends, Erlik sought to be equal to the creator god. He was followed by 9 evil spirits who helped him build his own kingdom. He became the greatest opponent of the celestial world. When we contemplate the world of the Mongols and their emblem, we find on it the same infamous satanic symbol, the sun between 2 horns. Did I not enjoin upon you, O children of Adam, that you should not worship Satan? Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy? And that you worship me, this is a straight path. And he had already led astray from among you many people. So did you not use your reason? This is hell which you were promised. Burn therein today because you disbelieved. That day we will seal over their mouths, and their hands will speak to us, and their feet will testify about what they used to earn. And if we willed, we could have obliterated their eyes, and they would race to the path, but how could they see? And if we willed, we could have deformed them in their places, so they would not be able to proceed, nor could they return. And he to whom we grant long life, we reverse him in creation. So will they not understand?